Now, Tamara, looking back at all that you've been through, do you think it was really worth it? Would you have done it all again?
Well, I mean, I think what we did went global. It basically put an end to the COVID pandemic. I, of course, had this conversation with my lawyer last week, and and there's so many people that Chris and I and many others from the Freedom Convoys spoken to and still hear from today that, stopped planning their own suicides because of what we did. So that's a hard thing to regret.
So, what lessons do you think were learned along the way? Do you feel what you and Chris set out to do was accomplished?
I think so. I mean, obviously, we were always hoping to have a conversation with somebody in Parliament about the concerns of a large portion of Canadians, and that never came, obviously. But I think, the result of our actions and everything that we did really exposed a lot that was happening within our government. And so I think for that reason alone, it was worth it.
Now, Tamara, millions of Canadians supported you in the Freedom Convoy, believing that you were fighting not only the mandates, but fighting for them. How did that really make you feel?
Oh, one thing I can say is that I've learned to have so much compassion for people, the stories that we've heard, and the support that we've had. It's really appreciated, and we get a lot of love wherever we go. So, I think we as a group became the voice of an entire population who are just simply fed up with government overreach.
Now, the Crown is seeking a 7-year prison sentence for you and 8 years for Chris Barber. Sentencing will take place on October the 7th. Now, a Toronto criminal defense lawyer I've spoken with said it's simply ridiculous that you could potentially serve that kind of time when repeat violent offenders are walking our streets. Do you feel that the federal government is trying to make an example of you and Chris?
Well, I don't know if this is coming so much from the federal government, although I will say that I do believe leaders lead by example. I think that this is coming from the Attorney General of Ontario, and it's really ridiculous to see the two-tier justice system that we seem to have in Canada. And all you need to do is look at the last 2 weeks alone of the violent offenders, sex offenders that have been given house arrest or a conditional discharge so that they won't have their immigration application, harmed. So I think Canadians are really waking up to see the difference between how some people are being treated within our system as opposed to others.
Now, obviously, the Trudeau government refused to meet with you back in 2022 during the Freedom Convoy in our nation's capital. If Justin Trudeau, our prime minister at the time, would have said to you and Chris, guys, let's sit down, have a cup of coffee, and let's talk this through, do you think things would have still played out the way they did?
I don't think they would have. I mean, really, that's all he ever asked for was a conversation and just to have the other side of the story told. I mean, we were hearing and seeing a lot of the harms that were being as a result of the mandates and the lockdowns. And there was only one side of the story that was being told in the media and from our politicians. So there was a large population of Canadians that were being completely ignored, had some very valid concerns that were going again completely ignored. And as we're seeing now, I mean, it's 3.5 years on, we're seeing the effects of the lockdowns and even the vaccine. Chris and myself have been very active in trying to advocate for a lot of the vaccine injured. So I think it would have definitely led to a different outcome. Even just to acknowledge the Canadians that did have concerns would have been a huge step forward.
Now, some people called your group misogynists, racists, even domestic terrorists. How did that make you feel?
Well, I've grown some pretty thick skin over the last few years, I'll say that. I mean, it was led mostly by the media and by the politicians, that whole narrative. And in reality, we were really just a bunch of middle class working Canadian citizens, just like everybody else, the majority of Canadians. And so, we just believed in a democratic system where we could go and be heard.
So, Tamara, what message do you have for people in Ottawa who are really angry, upset, and say that the Freedom Convoy disrupted their lives and their businesses?
Well, I think that is extremely unfortunate, and obviously my heart goes out to them. I know that they were inconvenienced. I believe that they did feel terrorized and traumatized. However, I do believe that that was set in motion by their own mayor and by their media and by the bureaucracy of the law enforcement in their area. Before we even got there, that narrative was already being painted, and I'll repeat it. We're just regular, ordinary Canadian citizens that had had enough of tyrannical overreach.
What are your thoughts on so many Canadian citizens having their bank accounts frozen, those who supported your cause?
Well, that's one of the most alarming things that actually came out of the whole indication of the Emergencies Act. As you've probably seen, I have copies of Krista Freeland's own handwritten notes from a meeting that she sat in with the CEOs of the big five banks in Canada, all of them advising her on what to do so that they could freeze bank accounts without any repercussions. So obviously that is extremely unconstitutional, very alarming that they can do that. And as you saw just last week, the RBC just recently also debanked one of our lawyers, Eva Chipiuk. So this is a very concerning trend that's happening in Canada, and it needs to be rectified. People need to believe that they have financial security and not have to worry about having the wrong beliefs or ideologies and having their bank accounts frozen.
Now, there were various fundraising initiatives that were set up during the Freedom Convoy supporting your cause, raising close to $10 million US from over 110,000 donors. Tamara, where did that money go?
Well, the first crowdfund that we'd set up was the GoFundMe, and all of that ended up being refunded. And the million that was released was immediately seized by the government of Ontario. Following that, you'll recall that we set up a Give, Send, Go, and the majority of that was also refunded. There was just about I think it was 3.4 million ish in donations to the Freedom Convoy that were seized, that were actually going through the Stripe payment processor at that time. And that is also sitting in an escrow account in Toronto, also seized by the government. There, there was also some Bitcoin and some donations to another organization that were lumped into that seizure order. And so I believe at the time that they seized that money, there was just over 5 million. So those donations are all still sitting in an escrow account in Toronto, likely pending the outcome of the $300 million civil suit that we're facing right now.
She's one of the organizers of the Freedom Convoy who will receive her sentence along with Chris Barber October the 7th for her role in the 2022 Freedom Convoy. Tamara Lich, thanks so much for your time today.
Thank you for having me, Hal. Always a pleasure.